that we shall look at next year in the plants and people option, whether or not this is coincidental or not, what we see is the emergence of another extraordinary event in the history of our planet. And it really is this ability to farm, the ability to take these wild grasses and turn something that produces a crop that we've been using on a very sort of hunter-gatherer way for the last 100,000 years, to take those grasses and turn them into this completely new organism, a hybrid of maybe 8 different species that can produce maybe 8 tons per hectare. And we've enabled to increase the carrying capacity of our habitat in a way that no other species has done. It's an extraordinary achievement. And on the back of the adoption of an agricultural lifestyle, we see the rise of civilization. And we did not just stop at growing plants for food. We grew plants for many other reasons. We started to create lots of varieties of the same crop. So, for instance, olives, useful for oil, but also as a food. We start seeing the humans exploiting crops for drinks, for beverages, for wine, for oranges, for juice, for vitamin C. And if you're looking at those and thinking, where on earth do you buy oranges like that? These are the most tasty oranges in the world. They are sold from the back of a van in a car park, in a lay-by in the hills in the Algarve, where we used to go on the field trip before we went to Tenerife in the 3rd year. And we always used to buy several bags of these oranges because they are so tasty, because they've just come off the tree. And this old boy used to sell them from the back of a van, and if you bought the laranja, he'd then say, "Mel, see," and he'd produce honey. And if you buy honey in the Algarve, you always have to taste it. And they normally give you a spoon or a wooden spatula to stick in there. He just used to stick his finger in it, and you'd lick it off the end of his finger. And it was fine, because the next thing is, if you bought the honey, you'd then say, "Madronia," see? And he'd get some madronia out of the cab of his van. And this is a firewater they make from the fruit of the strawberry tree in that part of the world. And he'd give you a glass of this, and it's fantastic stuff. It's really, really good for getting oil off the garage floor, but it's also really good for sterilizing your throat when you've just sucked the finger of an unknown Algarvian farmer. We also see plants being used for fibers, for linen. So like this, we'll come back to that later. We see crops being grown for their sugar content. Sugar beet gives us is a much more efficient crop, a much better crop to be growing really for the production of sugar. But it wasn't just in the Fertile Crescent, the part of the sort of Syria and Jordan neck of the woods, people were doing this. Over in China, millet and then rice were domesticated for staple diets. We see hemp being used for fibers, really, really strong fibers. In Central America, we see them taking teosinte, a grass that maybe has 12 seeds per spike, and changing it into maize, which has maybe 500 seeds per cob, a complete monster from this one species. We see also in Central America the chili peppers being domesticated and now incorporated in cuisines all around the world. And this is some of the variety of chili peppers you now get. There's a place down in Sussex called West Dean that has this festival every year of all the different chilies. You might be tempted to think some of those large red ones are the really hot ones. The one you want to avoid is the little orange one in the middle. If ever you cut up one of those little orange ones, please scrub your hands like you are a surgeon before you do anything of an intimate nature to yourself or anybody else. Further down, from Central America into South America, somebody thought, I could murder a packet of chips. And so we invented the potato. Solanum tuberosum would not have existed had it not been for that embryonic fish and chip man. And we see other plants being domesticated and exploited. More to the point, things like the rubber tree. There still is no artificial polymer that comes close to rubber for preventing the exchange of bodily fluids. And of course, the single most important crop, chocolate, was domesticated, the food of the gods. Back over on this side of the world, we see cotton being domesticated in a number of different places. The evolution of cotton is something of a mystery. Even the geneticists have not yet really been able to clearly and unequivocally say exactly how our modern cotton has arrived. There's certainly 4 different species in there. Some of the newer plants on the block, sorghum. This is now being grown in Oxfordshire. Traditionally, it's an African crop. It requires much, or is tolerant of much drier conditions. So if we're going to have dry summers, not last year, probably this one coming up, this is going to be a plant we're going to see growing in this country far more. Also out of Africa came coffee. And the final plant in these sort of staple ones, sugarcane, the final grass in this story, one of the last plants to be domesticated, but one of the plants that has possibly had more influence on human society than any other. Without sugarcane, and certainly without cotton, the whole of the slave trade would never have got going, and without the slave trade, goodness only knows how different the world would have been. But that's a lecture in the second year.